Well, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to commission the 3 frontline naval combatants today at the Mumbai's Naval Dockyard. These inductions, it aims to bolster India's maritime capabilities and also to underscore the nation's commitment to self-reliance in defense manufacturing. The Prime Minister, he in fact took to his social media platform X ahead of the event and said that the commissioning of the 2 made-in-India warships and a submarine on January 15th would strengthen our efforts towards being a global leader in defense and augment our quest towards self-reliance. Now, the Prime Minister, these are live shots that you're watching at the moment on your screens. The Prime Minister, he will be inaugurating the Sri Radha Madan Mohanji Temple, an ISKCON project in Kharghar in Navi Mumbai. And spanning 9 acres, this temple is poised to become Asia's 2nd largest ISKCON temple. Meanwhile, he's right now, at the moment, these are live pictures that you can see on your screens. He's set to commission the 3 frontline naval combatants today at the Mumbai's Naval Dockyard. This is where the Prime Minister is at the moment. These inductions, it aims to bolster India's maritime capabilities. It also underscores the nation's commitment to self-reliance in defense manufacturing. Meanwhile, my colleague Vishnu Shom joins us to get us more on this. Vishnu, you know, the big question here is how these naval combatants that are being inducted into the Navy, these are absolutely state-of-the-art, as you have been mentioning earlier as well.
Yeah, these are absolutely state-of-the-art. And I think it's wonderful that when one talks about Make in India or Atmanirbharta, as it's known now, these are actual examples of how, when we want to get things done in the defense sector, we can actually do it. The 2 warships, the Nilgiri and the Surat, have been built to an Indian design. They've been designed by Indian naval designers. They've been constructed at Mazgaon docks. The Surat, which is the larger of the 2 ships, has a 75% indigenous content, and that's gone up over the course of the ships of the same class which have been inducted. So it's the final ship of the Project 15 Bravo class, or the Visakhapatnam class as it's known. And the frigate, which is slightly smaller, is the INS Nilgiri, which is being commissioned today. You can see the Nilgiri on your screen right now. That is the first ship of a new class, which is the Project 17A class, which is a follow-up of the Navy's Shivalik class frigates, which have done exceedingly well. The ships themselves are very well integrated. They've got sensors from different parts of the world, Israeli sensors, Israeli missiles, Indian missiles, Indian systems putting it all together, Ukrainian engines in the case of the Surat. But it's the integration which is something which is quite impressive. A large number of the components which I spoke to you about, for example, the surface-to-air missile suite, which is based on the Israeli Barak-8 missile, is now manufactured in India. The BrahMos anti-ship or anti-ground target cruise missile, which is a missile which flies at just under 3 times the speed of sound, is manufactured entirely in India. It was originally of a Russian design, but we've modified it substantially over the years. So this is a huge addition to the Indian Navy. And, it takes many, many years usually for a single ship to be commissioned, to be built and commissioned. Several years, sometimes in the case of the Indian Navy, it's taken up to a decade. But to have 2 warships and 1 submarine commissioned on the same day is a huge, huge feat indeed.
Right. Vishnu, this is a major milestone in the country's pursuit of self-reliance and defense leadership. Just give us a sense of how are these combatants, significantly enhance India's naval capabilities?
Well, let me try and spell that out in very simple terms. If you look at both the Surat and the Nilgiri, they've got a radar right on the top, which is, you can see it in fact now, the big round arrays. That's called the MF Star radar. That's an Israeli ELTA radar, which is now being co-developed here in India, as I understand it, but certainly an Israeli design over there. The MF Star enables these warships to detect incoming anti-ship missiles, missiles which may be targeting the ship, sometimes supersonic missiles of this class at very high, very robust ranges. So ranges, some would suggest, well over 250, 300 kilometers. Then once you have been able to track them, a different set of radars actually acquire them and lock onto them. And then the surface-to-air missiles, which are the Barak 8 missile, which is known as the MR-SAM missile in Indian Naval Service, are actually fired. And this can be done entirely automatically. From detection to locking on to the launching of missiles, it can all happen automatically. And these missiles, among the most advanced surface-to-air missiles in the world, can in fact knock out these missiles in a very, very quick period of time. Incoming missiles. And of course, there is the BrahMos missile, which I've spoken about. The BrahMos can engage targets well above 300 kilometers in range. It can take on enemy ships. It can hit targets on the ground. It's widely considered to be among the finest, if not the finest, anti-ship or ship-launched cruise missile in the world. It's very difficult to intercept because of the maneuvers that it makes in the final few moments of its flight before it hits its target. These are just a couple of examples of why these platforms are absolutely state-of-the-art. But I should add a word of caution. India doesn't have enough warships, just as we don't have enough fighter aircraft. And therefore, in the context of our primary rival, which is increasingly China, we need many more of these. That means getting an enormous addition to our defense budget as a percentage of our GDP, placing these orders and ensuring that these actually come through. Because at the rate at which China is manufacturing and commissioning warships, it's unprecedented in recent history. And therefore, the threat remains to us. So these are very valuable assets, but we need many more. And that's what the Navy says.
Absolutely. Vishnu, in fact, having said that, can you elaborate on the features and capabilities of each of the three naval combatants here? That is the INS Surat, INS Nilgiri and INS Vaghsheer.
So I did just do that, but let me just tell you a little bit about the submarine. The submarine that you see on your screen now is the Vaghsheer. The Vaghsheer is the sixth of 6 Scorpene-class submarines. The Scorpene is a French design. These submarines rather, have all been manufactured at Mazgaon docks. These are diesel-electric submarines. They are much more, they're seen to be more advanced than the existing submarines which we've had of the same class, which have been Russian Kilo-class submarines and German HTW-class submarines. These are fairly decent range, which means that they can travel reasonably far out into the Indian Ocean. But diesel-electric submarines have both advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that they are exceedingly quiet submarines. And the quieter submarine is, the more difficult it is to detect. When we talk about stealth weapons, the submarine is the ultimate stealth weapon. It is designed for stealth. It is designed to be quiet. And out there, out in the ocean, it is very, very difficult to track a submarine indeed, and more so a diesel-electric submarine. The disadvantage of a diesel-electric submarine is that it needs to come to the surface, or almost come to the surface, to snorkel. In other words, to ensure that there's an exchange of gases which takes place so that there is fresh air which comes in and that the exhaust plumes of the diesel engines can actually be emitted. And that's a time when a diesel-electric submarine is quite vulnerable to detection from aircraft or from other ships, and that's when it can be attacked. India is complementing the Vaghsheer and other diesel-electric submarines with a class of nuclear ballistic-powered missile submarine called the Arihant class. There are also plans to build nuclear-powered fast attack submarines. These have typically unlimited endurance. The endurance, the nuclear reactor means that you can always remain underwater, whereby it's much more difficult to detect a submarine. You only come up when you run out of supplies and you need, and for example, food for the crew. But typically they can run on for a very long period of time. So the Surat and the Nilgiri the Surat is a destroyer, the Nilgiri is a frigate. The Surat is the final ship of the Visakhapatnam class. The Visakhapatnam class itself is an upgrade or an enhanced version of the Kolkata class destroyers. And the Nilgiri class is interesting because it's a new class of frigate. It's called the Project 17A frigate, but it is a follow-up design with significant modifications of the Shivalik class indigenous destroyer. So, when I started tracking Indian Navy warships and indigenous manufacture, it was back in 1996. And then, and since then we've seen an evolution take place, and that's been really impressive. I mean, impressive by any global standard. The only problem has been the pace of manufacture. That's been exceedingly slow. As I mentioned, in some cases, it's taken 10 years for a ship. But in terms of the technology, from the Delhi class to the Kolkata class to the Vishakhapatnam class, or from the Shivalik class to the Nilgiri class, the ship that's being commissioned now, one of the two, it's been very impressive in terms of the capabilities which have come on board, Osama.